I have a soft spot about time. I always felt I'm running out of it. With parents active in medicine, and especially emergency medicine, it was as if my life evolved around a ticking sound. I heard the ticking sound as a young athlete. I heard the ticking sound as a young musician. I heard the ticking sound as a young activist. And I was actually so into it that in my high school yearbook, I wrote that I feel that I'm always behind time, and my goal in life is someday to beat it. So I went to study. I got passionate about student politics, then European politics, and that got me traveling, which led to an MBA and more studying. I got passionate about knowledge harvesting, problem solving, human rights, entrepreneurship, and business. I founded companies, I co-founded organizations, I mentored, I taught, I created workshops, I shared my opinion and spoke over and over and over again about all things that mattered. So by 28, I felt that I was the change I wanted to see in the world. You know, like no time wasting, all balls in the air flying, no dropping, no hesitating, the whole deal. And then one day, my phone rang while I was in Athens. And my mother had a stroke, and she died from a triple aneurysm less than 48 hours later. People spend their lives trying to find motivation. They spend their lives trying to practice time management, trying so hard not to waste any time. And I used to say to my friends and my colleagues and anybody who'd listen that your time is valuable and billable, so you better not waste it. So what happens when for you everything is reversed? You know, people after something like this, they get motivated. They want to do things. They want to tackle the things that brought them pain. They tackle the issues that they had in mind. They reinvent themselves. They appreciate whatever they feel that needs appreciation. So what happened when for you now everything seems a bit like a joke? Like, why do it anyway? There is such a big chance of waking up tomorrow fatally sick, or even worse, not waking up at all. So why waste time trying to fix something that other people do wrong, or fix something that is unfixable, or go against what this world and our society command? Like, try debate equal pay when the ceiling seems like the most attractive thing in the world. It's not happening. But people get to that low point one way or another. Something in the course of our lives might leave us sad, demotivated, or lonely even. For me, all those feelings were sparked by my mother's death. For other people, might be a divorce, getting fired, or anything relevant to something really, really important. And there is no reason to hide that pain. The more you hide it, the more powerful it gets. And it sucks the will and the life out of you, day after day, week after week. And then here comes the guilt. Guilt that you are trying to ignore as you keep on staring at that same ceiling, thinking that there will never be a reason good enough to break that bond that seems so simple and attractive while everything around you goes to shit. So that was me for 2 whole years. Like, my mind was battling my heart and vice versa. And I promised I struggled. God knows I did. First, after the incident, I was still fierce, still doing my stuff, still doing my job. But then slowly, every project seemed dull. And slower and slower, I keep pushing family and friends away, clients, and anybody who would ever disturb my state of mind, I don't give a rat's ass one. And then I tried to travel, and it seemed such an obvious thing to do, traveling. But the travel of those years, they come to memory as a series of beautiful images paired with sad music blasting in my ears throughout all of it. So I'm going to open a parenthesis here and introduce to you a rule that is really, really important for my story. Do we all know the 5-second rule here? So, okay, so the 5-second rule, besides eating food from the floor, refers to something very, very basic. Our brain, although almighty, has two basic functions. Function number one is the autopilot. It is what helps us form our routines and go by our everyday life. So who here remembers how they got to work today? I don't. It's an autopilot. It's the same street, it's the same time. Autopilot. I don't even remember. But one day, let's say, I woke up and I say, fuck you, I'm not going to go to work today. And at first, you get so excited, but then a bit of guilt kicks in that you lied your way out of it, and you're kind of starting contemplating, oh, maybe I should go back. So enter function number two, which is the emergency brake. Every time we decided to leave our comfort zone, our brain pulls the emergency brake. Our brain needs less than a millisecond to recognize a facial expression, and it needs 5 seconds to pull the emergency brake that will safely guide us back to our lovely comfort zone that we've always been there and we kind of like it. So a crazy idea has 5 seconds to survive without an action. And I thank Mel Brooks for introducing me to this rule with her TED speech of 2011. So one day, 2 years after the incident, my mother incident, and a bit before I turned 30, I got an invitation to speak at an event about women in entrepreneurship. 2 years prior to that, I would be thrilled to have the opportunity to share that opinion. Trust me, I'm a sharer, like I share my opinion. And this time though, it felt a bit like a chore. But I went there anyway, all pessimistic and moody, like I stand in front of the audience. At some point I told them, I'm preaching to the wrong crowd. And then I decided to step off and go back to my seat. That crowd though, the same one I addressed as the wrong one to talk to, decided that it wasn't time for me to go back. So they pulled me back on the stage, and I sat there stoically while they challenged me with their questions and their ideas and their experiences. Why do you think that quotas are ridiculous? It is proven that in occasion A and B and C, they help the women movement tremendously. Women should pick that opportunity no matter what, and it's unfair, but they should do it. So 5-second rule. I was never big on the gender equality movement, never. I kind of scratched the surface, considering myself as one of those women that they get along with men quite nicely, like tomboy half of my life, one of the guys the rest of it. And after that event, although I kind of stood my ground in some of my beliefs, there was a revelation before my own eyes. Like, I was actually part of the problem. I was part of that stereotype that kept, breeding and, fueling the whole inequality in all society layers. So what was I going to do about it? 5-second rule. The obvious response was nothing, obviously, because who cares, right? But that feeling started to wear off, because days later, I was keep on discussing the matters of women in entrepreneurship in the same way I kept on discussing about women representation in boards, in government, in ballots. And some of the female participants of that crowd today, they reached out immediately. They set up meetings, we had coffees, and they fought their way into making me understand how important it was for me to join their efforts. And it is because of that crowd that I stand here before you today. Based on the 5-second rule, it was a decision of a split second that created workshops for pushing more women into politics, created TV trainings, created the first campaign for a female disabled candidate in the past parliamentary elections. At the same time, the same rule got me in front of a screen applying for Asia-Europe Summer University, taking me on an 8,000-kilometer journey to understanding transport and the impact on human connectivity around China, Russia, and Mongolia. It's the same rule that got me knocking on Hillary for America's campaign door, because a crazy idea has 5 seconds to survive without an action, like ultimately an action will have a reaction. This is not a story about a person totally infatuated with time, overcoming a difficult situation and grief. Because grief may change shape and sizes, but it will never go away no matter how much time passes. This is a story about a girl that spent her whole life understanding how valuable time is, finding her way back to what's important after something like this happens. Going back, it's not a procedure that people can actually go through, because going back literally is impossible, because common sense in our society commands that we move forward. I realized that day, after that speech, that I could possibly never go back, but I could let other amazing individuals show me the way to what's important again, to reintroduce me to the same values I once had, but grief overshadowed them. They made me understand how important it is to accept and then share. They made me realize the relief you feel once you let somebody else carry you on their back just for a little while. They made me appreciate all the support you can get, although it's so hard to reach out, and how challenging it is to be in a position that you understand and feel to your core how ephemeral our existence is, not just by reading, but by experiencing. As my Trans-Siberian train roommate wrote me in a poem, when you make life matter and time matter, your life becomes better. Your friends, your families, your own expectations will shatter, but you will climb because you don't mind. You leave behind money, stress, and pressure, and you will treasure the time you had. There is no measure. At the end of the day, things will happen to our lives that will force it to change paths. It will be painful, and it will be messy. But one day, an idea, a spark, and/or someone will make time matter again. And I know that now. And just to leave you with a cliche, I'm going to say a verse from one of my favorite songs of one of my favorite artists introduced to me by my dad 25 years ago. And it's Bob Dylan's My Back Pages. Oh, but I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now. Thank you.